Friends, I will just be happy to share with you a favorite story concerning the life of the Lord Gautama Buddha. He went forth, as you may know, as a young man, as a prince of his race, the eldest son, gave up everything, determined that he would never give up his effort till he had solved the problem of the cause and the cure of all human sorrows. He achieved and attained Buddhahood under the famous Bodhi tree at Gaya, Bodh Gaya. And here comes this story, which I myself have so loved for so long. And again, it's wonderfully told by Sir Edwin Arnold in the 7th book of The Light of Asia. In the course of his travels, the Lord Buddha revisited the capital city of his home country, which city is Kapilavastu. There his father, his beloved wife Yasodhara, whose heart was broken for a time by his departure, they all welcomed him, especially his father Suddhodana. But when the king heard how Siddhartha had arrived, shorn with mendicant's clothing, the yellow-colored cloth, and, yes, stretching out a begging bowl, wrathful sorrow drove love from his heart. And the king broke forth with these words. Ends it in this, that great Siddhartha steals into his realm, wrapped in a clout, shorn, sandaled, craving food? Son, why is this? Then comes the wonderful reply, which I will read to you. My father, came the reply, it is the custom of my race. Thy race, answered the king, counteth 100 thrones from Mahasamat, but no deed like this. Not of a mortal line, the master said, I spake, but of descent invisible. The Buddhas who have been and who shall be, of these am I. And what they did, I do. And this which now befalls, so fell before, that at his gate a king in warrior mail should meet his son, a prince in hermit weeds, and that by love and self-control, being more than mightiest kings in all their puissance, the appointed helper of the world should bow, as now I do, and with all lowly live proffer, where it is owed for tender debts, the first fruits of the treasure he hath brought, which now I proffer. Then the king, amazed, inquired, what treasure? And the teacher took meekly the royal palm. And while they paced through worshipping streets, the princess, that's his wife Yasodhara, and the king on either side, he told the things which make for peace and pureness, the 4 noble truths which hold all wisdom as shores shut the seas. Those 8 rules whereby who will may walk, monarch or slave, upon the perfect path that hath its stages 4 and precepts 8, whereby those who will live, mighty or mean, wise or unlearned, man, woman, young or old, shall, soon or late, break from the wheels of life, attaining blessed nirvana. So they came unto the palace porch. Suddhodana, with brows unknit, drinking the mighty words, and in his own hand carrying Buddha's bowl, whilst a new light brightened the lovely eyes of sweet Yasodhara and sunned her tears. And the last line I brought to read you. Whilst a new light brightened the lovely eyes of sweet Yasodhara and sunned her tears. And that night entered they the way of peace. And so you see, the Prince Siddhartha, who set forth as a young man, his heart broken by the sorrows he had seen, the sick, the aged, the sorrowful and the dying, and in his heart there had been born that unbreakable resolve that he would rest no more until he had discovered the cause and the cure of humanity's sorrow. And whilst, you remember, everybody slept that night, Yasodhara beside him, and his lovely young son, Rahula, whom he named, meaning the fetter, he stole forth, called forth to Channa, his horseman, and said, "Bring forth my horse." And the devas, or angels, stilled the household and the whimpering of the horse, and out they went. And when they'd got a certain distance, Siddhartha said to Channa, "Remove my hair," gave him the sword, and he cut his hair off, and handed him his royal robes, and on foot he strode forth, determining never to return till he'd found the secret of the cause of human sorrow and its cure. Then came the long story, into which I cannot go, the final attainment, the gift to humanity of the Noble Eightfold Path, included in the 4 Noble Truths. What were they, if I can remember them? 1. Sorrow, suffering exists. 2. The cause of suffering, craving, tanha in Pali. The cure of sorrow, to cease from craving. The way to cease from craving, the Noble Eightfold Path, which I have not brought with me, but recommend to you in any good book on Buddhism, giving the, in very readable and very acceptable terms, the pathway which leads to the cessation of craving, and thence to peace which can never be disturbed. And it's very wonderful when he arrived home, and how at first his father was so enraged, very quickly, by his power and the wisdom of his words, was himself changed completely. And he also undertook to tread the Noble eightfold path. And so did Yasodhara. But the king kept on his kingship because the kingdom had to be managed. But eventually, with the aid of son and wife, both of them entered into the peace. Lovely story, as I think you will agree. Do read Sir Edwin Arnold's The Light of Asia. And yes, suddenly comes to my mind another book I like to recommend, also by Sir Edwin Arnold, the Bhagavad Gita, or as he's translated it, the Lord's Song. This tells of the life of the Lord Sri Krishna, to whom I refer, who earlier had arrived, with a similar cause in his heart, an avatar of the divine, and sang to the world that which has never really been exceeded in beauty, the Bhagavad Gita, or the Lord's Song. So, might I presume to advise, if you haven't already, possess, keep beside your beds, with other beautiful bedside books, at least those two books. Now, are your questions too difficult for me, friends? Let me see. I'm perturbed about the increase of people in mental institutions. With you, friend, very deeply. Do you believe drugging them 3 times a day is the right way of helping them? Please elaborate. Quite impossible. Most dangerous to generalize, especially where health is concerned. One needs each actual case before one and a very careful examination of the mental, emotional, etheric and physical bodies to find out exactly where the cause lies and then treat that place and that cause. So, lacking that, friend, excuse me, I am unable to answer you. I'm sorry. Except that one hopes that what I've just said would be applied more and more individually to the cases that come, instead of a kind of a mass treatment which might be not only not suitable for all, but harmful to many. In that, I would incline to say no. My glasses, I don't need my glasses. Could you say whether Ramana Maharishi was an adept? No, I would never presume. Please excuse me.
2 questions that are related.
Are there adepts functioning in female bodies? Yes, definitely. Can you give their names? The mother of one of the great avatars in India, the manifestation of the Lord Buddha, Rama. No. Next one. The Lord Rama, who followed Parasurama, who is the subject of the wonderful scripture called the Ramayana. You might like to read that too. Well, his mother. No, Sadra corrects me. It was Parasurama, meaning one of the great avatars of India, at the same time as Rama, whose mother was and still is an adept on earth, but her name is not known to us. Now I'm going to say something quite personal now. I'm I presume greatly, to believe that the mother of the Lord Jesus Christ, the so-called Virgin Mary, did also attain to adeptship. And her assumption and coronation are symbolical references to that attainment, and that she still is a divine presence on earth, a veritable incarnation of divine love, compassion for all, but especially for womanhood and women in the procedure of pregnancy and childbirth. Yes, the Blessed Lady Mary. I have written a little on that in which book? Oh yes, The Miracle of Birth. I was carrying out some research in the presence of mothers to-be in the later stages of pregnancy. To my amazement, found myself more than once moved to the belief that I've just put before you, but I do not know of any other names. Yes, I answer your second one, yes. I think that being who was named the Virgin Mary was and is a very highly evolved adept.
In the writings of T. Subbarao, there's a chapter within adepts which is very useful.
Sandra reminds me and tells me, informs me, if you want to follow this up, friends, in the writings of one of our earlier authors, T. Subbarao, there you will find in one of his books a chapter which was
Women Adepts.
Women Adepts. Do you remember the title of the book? Oh yes,
Writings.
yes, thank you, Sandra. Esoteric Writings by T. Subbarao. Wonderful book, by the by, one of our early inspired writers, T. Subbarao. There he gives you much information. Would the Rosicrucians be a good source of training in the greater and lesser mysteries? There are so many different Rosicrucian orders that I'm unable entirely to answer. There's AMORC, and then there's the other one. There are so many Rosicrucian orders that it would be very wrong of me to pass an opinion at all. Would you excuse me from answering that question? I do not know. As various sounds or tones appear to be utilized in the construction of plant forms, could the use of such mental sounds as the tones be the process by which mind produces beneficial thought forms? Sorry, friend, too deep, and a world in which I have so little experience. I did endeavor, and have published somewhere, to investigate Clive Baxter's work, and had a lot of plants brought to me here on my last visit. And I did several hours of investigation and came to the conclusion that indeed there is a consciousness, however dim compared with our own, but a certain sensitivity and so responsiveness to human thought and emotion existing in plants. But that, friend, is as far as I've gone. Don't press me, will you, for any further information. I have none. Following the tragic destruction of the magnificent libraries at Alexandria, were efforts made to Thank you for printing. There's just one word I can't quite make out. Were efforts made to control other sources of ancient information on the mysteries from further obstruction. You're asking me to talk about things of which I have little or no knowledge, but I have, in the course of time, come to a certain thought that when the destruction of what is going to be later of great value to mankind is imminent, the great masters themselves intervene, withdraw and save such matter as is thus going to be valuable later on. We are taught, for example, of the existence in the advanced Himalayas, the Trans-Himalayan range, of a very wonderful museum wherein are preserved and maintained by the adepts records from the remotest times of life on earth and of, yes, the earliest members of the animal kingdom. Yes, so I would incline to answer you, yes, care as far as the law of karma permits is, I believe, sometimes taken occultly to preserve that which has value to mankind for the future. I'm inclined to think so, friend. Please speak of the teacher-student relationship in reference to the dangers involved in the student getting lost from his own inner guidance because of overemphasis in revering the teacher. You know, friends, if you read The Science of Yoga, and I do recommend it, there is one quality which, together with many others, is stressed. It is, in Sanskrit, Vairagya. V-A-I-R-A-G-Y-A. What's that mean? It means dispassion. The intelligent discrimination in the choice, first of all, of teachers themselves, and secondly, of that which they teach, and thirdly, of that which one would apply to oneself. I would just give you also what I believe to be the key to safety in these fields: motive. Be sure that the sole motive is to become more efficient in the service of one's fellow men. Holding that firmly, one is reasonably on the pathway of safety. If there is any thought of self-gain, any idea of awakening wonderful powers in oneself that will make one superior to others, and of course even better in some ways, be careful where self-thought, self-desire comes in. Always wisely discriminate in the choice of teacher, the teachings given, and those which you will apply to yourself. I agree with you, there are dangers. I shall be dealing with these very subjects, as you may see by the program later on, including the development of clairvoyance as an instrument of research and the awakening of the serpent fire. These I've chosen to offer here partly in order that I might perhaps give some useful guidance in this very field to which you refer. Be careful, friend, and take care to keep complete control of your own will, your own thought, your own vitality, and your own life, and way of life. Absolutely. Then you are reasonably safe. Add to that the motive, selflessness in service to your fellow men. Would you please comment on the Pistis Sophia and its relation and reverence to the mystery school tradition? Doubtless few of you will know the book. It's an ancient Gnostic book of very great interest indeed. And in reply to your question, yes, I think it's directly related to and emerges from what you call the mystery tradition. Yes. How does diet relate to spiritual and development? One's, of course, self-control, and in one other very important respect. What is that? The total absence of the unnecessary infliction of pain upon any sentient creature. Now that is another of the absolutes in spiritual unfoldment and development. And therefore it applies in diet. You will see in your newspapers today, local one, the girl who won the prize for the best steer wept. Why? She loved it, but it had to be led away to the slaughterhouse. Now, you can't hope for spiritual development if you are participating voluntarily in the infliction of suffering upon helpless creatures. Now, as to motive there, as to your opinions, Theosophy leaves us all entirely free. The Theosophical Society does not preach vegetarianism, and all of us are free. But since you asked me that question, I'm obliged to say that harmlessness in thought and word and deed is essential in the securing of spiritual development. Is a vegetarian lifestyle more conducive to the unfoldment? Yes, and the absence of it will hold it up. So I personally, Geoffrey Hodson, say, but the Theosophical Society does not say, and this Crotona School of Theosophy does not say, for we have no dogmas here, no dogmatists, all of us being entirely free. Our bond of union is not a common thought, but a common search for truth. I can say that to you myself as a discovery I think I have made, but do not associate it with the totally mental free teachings and existence of the Theosophical Society. Yes, question B, a vegetarian lifestyle is more conducive to one's unfoldment. Yes. What is the diet of those who practice Kundalini? Vegetarianism. Wisely chosen vegetarianism. I don't like to be personal at all, knowing my limitations and weaknesses, especially in those directions. But I've been a vegetarian total since I left the army in 1990. And I find that it's possible to maintain perfect health on a vegetarian dietary. Sandra too, almost a lifelong vegetarian. I have been taught that evil is merely the same as ignorance. Who taught you that, I wonder? Others can provide good argument for the existence of evil adepts. Can you shed some light on this? Yes, the second part, the two don't go together. There couldn't be an evil adept. There might be those who choose the dark path of cruelty, dominance, and ill treatment of fellow men for personal power, who achieve considerable mental development, but of spiritual development there will be none whatever to be denied them. Only as the heart becomes filled and overfilled with compassionate love for all that can feel and think and respond, only then can the pathway to adeptship be swiftly trodden to its glorious goal. Be careful, friend, in your choice. We would like to know a little more about the Yucatan Brotherhood. Perhaps I'll tell you a story as I close. Right?
The
I'll
last one.
take it. The last close. Are any of the masters living on earth? Do they hold meetings for initiations? As far as I know, the answer is in the affirmative. And I would recommend you to a quite wonderful book called The Masters by C.W. Leadbeater, and another book by Dr. Annie Besant called The Masters. What's the Leadbeater's?
The Masters and the Path.
The C.W. Leadbeater's book is The Masters and the Path, and Dr. Besant's book is The Masters. And amongst other writers, you will find information giving you a positive answer to that question. Now I close with a story, may I? Evoked to my mind by this question about the Yucatan Brotherhood. Some of you may know it. It was told me by an American Indian chief when I was living for a time in the region of the Rio Grande near Santa Fe, and was privileged to have some contact with the high priest, if you may so call it, of one of the tribes. And whilst because their inner wisdom has been so wrongly treated, scorned and laughed at by ourselves, they retain their deeper knowledge very severely from such treatment. However, for a time, this particular Indian high priest of one of the villages told me this story about, I think it was 800 years ago. His village and the surrounding area became plunged into the evil of black magic. And the local chiefs were unable to check it. It spread to become an extreme danger. And so the elders of the tribe, it was on the banks of the Rio Grande, got together and they sent up a prayer to the inner spiritual elders in whom they firmly believe. And by the by, as he talked to me, I realized that this concept of the true elders who guide the tribes is the same as, or very close to that, of the masters of the wisdom of whom we've been thinking together this morning. And so the human elders of the tribe got together and uttered a prayer. In response, as they believed, there appeared from the south a very beautiful young man. He arrived, told the elders he'd come in answer to their prayer and would try to cure the region of black magic. His name was Pusayemo. Posayemo. P-O-S-E-Y-E-I-M-O. Posayemo. You'll find it in American Indianology. Well, Posayemo came, and he drew the tribal people all around him, and he had, amongst others, a remarkable faculty, that of oratory, to a very high degree, and so great was his oratory that he won them over, away from the black magic, to a pure life, and virtually cleared the region. He then left, went northwards, and I was told by some Indianologists that he may have been the one of whom Longfellow writes, who visited the more northerly tribes. However, unhappily, there was one tribe in this original region which wasn't wholly convinced, and within which the black magic practices began again and endangered the district. Again the prayer was uttered, and again Posayemo came. Tall, beautiful young man. Again he drew them all around him, and again, with his wonderful oratory, finally won them all over to the banishment of this evil amongst the tribes. What happened to Posayemo? This is partly legend and myth, of course. Well, one evening, after success, he was attending a home, and there was a certain festivity. And he went out for some fresh air. And on the roof there was the power by which he traveled, symbolized by an eagle, a great eagle. And this eagle was there on the roof. And he called him and warned him, "You should leave now, for there is a plot by one or two only to destroy you by poison this night." So Posayemo mounted his eagle. You can translate that into the real meaning. Mounted his eagle and flew thereupon right down the valley of the Rio Grande, blessing the villagers as he went, till finally he disappeared to the south. One part of the legend says into the Gulf of Mexico. But the student of theosophy, and I'm answering your question now, would conceive that he really was a messenger from the Brotherhood of Yucatan, which is still there, from which doubtless he came to help the tribes, and which I understand from various sources is still active on behalf of this part of our globe. And that, friends, is all I can tell you on that subject. But I wonder, as we part briefly, I might repeat to you those golden stairs about which we were thinking together last week, which have been proclaimed to be the veritable guidance for those who would find the Master and eventually become adepts. May I read it? And with this I will close. It's called The Golden Stairs, and together with an immeasurable amount of priceless wisdom given to the world, it comes from H.P. Blavatsky. Here it is. I'll say it slowly. It answers your question, friends, about your teacher and your pathway towards the light. Pray listen. The golden stairs. A clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, an eager intellect, an unveiled spiritual perception, a brotherliness for all, a readiness to give and receive advice and instruction, a courageous endurance of personal injustice, a brave declaration of principles, a valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked, and a constant eye to the ideal of human progression and perfection, which the sacred science depicts. These are the golden stairs, up the steps of which the learner may climb to the temple of divine wisdom. Thank you.